Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back in time, not to royal feasts or knightly duels, but to a muddy little patch of land where your neighbors are chickens, your pillow is straw, and the biggest event of the day is whether the cow gives milk or just attitude. Yep, you're a medieval farmer now, and you're mourning. It starts with the low groan of a wooden shutter, a breath of cold air that smells like wet hay and something vaguely unwashed, and a rooster that's apparently been training for opera. Outside, mist hugs the ground like it's shy, and your toes immediately regret existing. You step down from your sleeping mattersack of something that was probably once comfortable, and the chill bites harder than last night's mystery stew. That stew, by the way, still sits in a clay pot near the hearth, looking like it might be planning revenge. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle toward the door, brushing past rough wool cloaks and a dried herb bundle that pokes you in the ear. Your family's already half awake, grumbling about chores and the weird noise the pig made last night. Outside, the sky is the soft blue-gray of wet linen, and smoke from other huts curls lazily in the air like it's not quite ready to start. The day either. Your job, same as yesterday and the day before. Tend the animals, check the crops, avoid eye contact with the neighbor who insists his goat can predict the future. Routine is everything here. It's how you survive. But you already know something's off. You can feel it in your teeth. Not pain exactly, more like your molars are warning you. Today's going to be interesting. The mud squelches under your worn boots as you step into the yard. One hen gives you side-eye like she's in charge. You pass the lean-to where the sheep sleep and notice the winds change, dits carrying moisture. You glance up at the clouds, low and soft-bellied, and squint. Could be rain, or a storm, or nothing at all. You sigh and mentally prepare to spend your day elbow-deep in compost inside. Your youngest sibling is humming a tune that's either a hymn or the theme to that weird local tale about turnips that scream. Your grandmother, half blind and fully opinionated, sits by the fire muttering about the year of the crooked moon and how the geese know too much. You half listened, you always half listened, until she says something about rainbows. Again, count M, she says, tapping the table with a bony finger. Count every one. They mean something. Always have. You roll your eyes, or try to. You haven't slept much, and your eyelids are stuck like overbaked pie crust. But her words linger. You remember her saying it before, years ago, and you remember laughing. But today, it sticks differently. You gather your toozer bent hoe, a dull knife, a small pouch of dried peasant head to the field. It's a humble thing. A strip of earth carved between two hills, hemmed by wildflowers and the occasional confused squirrel. Your turnips are sulking. Your barley is doing its best, and the cabbages, well, they're more ambition than actual. Food, every sound here matters. The call of birds, the snap of twigs, even the distant bleat of a goat who sounds like it's got opinions on taxes. You start your rounds, muttering to yourself, occasionally arguing with a thistle, and then, somewhere between weeding and wondering if your knees are older than the village priest, it happens. A shimmer. Not loud, not sudden, just there. A faint arched flicker in the sky, like someone smeared color across the clouds with a wet thumb. A rainbow, you freeze. Not because it's rare you've seen rainbows before, but because of what your grandmother said, and what the other farmers mutter about when they think no one's listening. Rainbows mean something, and maybe, just maybe, they mean something. For you, you count quietly. 1, you whisper, not out loud, not too loud, just enough that the air hears you. And neighbor Tom with the limp and the annoying laugh spots it too. He raises a hand but doesn't wave, just nods. One farmer to another, rainbow witnessed. Count updated. You head back toward the fence line, the image of the rainbow fading but the feeling lingering. It's not just pretty, it's a sign, not divine, maybe, but close. In a world where most things try to kill you, wolves, cold, taxes, anything beautiful feels like a message. And you start to wonder, what if they're right? What if counting rainbows isn't silly? What if it's the one bit of magic poor people get? As you pack up your tools and head home, the mud seems softer, the sky a little kinder, even the cabbage patch looks optimistic. Maybe that's the rainbow talking. Maybe it's your aching back. Either way, you smile. Tomorrow, you'll wake up and do this all over again. But tonight, you'll fall asleep with color still glowing in your mind, a quiet arc in the sky, a soft hope in your chest. You wake before the rooster, this time not because you're eager, but because your back decided sleep was optional. The wooden beam above your head has a new splinter threatening your scalp, and somewhere nearby, a beetle is having a personal parade across your blanket. Morning in medieval times has no snooze button, no strong coffee, and definitely no soft lighting. Just the usual chilly toes, smoky breath, and your sheep muttering secrets in their sleep. You stretch, or try to. Something pops. Could be a joint, could be divine punishment for eating that weird cheese last night. Either way, it's time to shuffle into another day of hard labor disguised as rural serenity. You step outside, and the sky greets you with that blank, maybe ill-rain look. The kind that makes you question everything about your planting decisions. And staring at your field, the one patch of soil responsible for feeding 5 mouths, a grumpy pig, and one mysteriously long-lived duck, you feel the familiar twinge of dread. You don't own this land, you rent it. Well, more like exist on it in exchange for constant toil under a noble who couldn't tell a rutabaga from a radish. Your livelihood is tethered to this dirt. Your status, your food, your chances of surviving the winter, every bit of it relies on whether these turnips feel like cooperating. The soil is mostly clay, which means you're either battling a swamp or a brick wall, depending on the weather. Today, you kneel in the rows, fingers already blackened with damp earth. The barley sprouts look decent, but the onions they look like they've seen some things. A worm wiggles past, probably trying to vacate before you start another round of existential muttering. You start weeding, humming that tune again, the same one your sibling was humming yesterday. It's annoyingly catchy, even if the lyrics are nonsense about a dancing cow and a feathered monk. Then your neighbor Gertrude strolls past, her sheep trailing behind like hairy, judgmental clouds. She pauses. Rainbow yesterday, she says casually, like she's commenting on the price of stale bread. Near the chapel hill, you nod. Saw it. She looks at your field, then at you. Turnips might like that. You raise an eyebrow. You think rainbows pick favorites now. Gertrude shrugs in that way only confident older women can manage, as though she's both amused by your skepticism and convinced she knows something the monks don't. Some folk keep count, say, it helps the harvest. You don't laugh, not really, because part of you, some quiet soil smeared, part doesn't think it's a joke. Farmers here live by patterns, bird migrations, sunrise shadows, how fast your knee aches before rain, rainbow sightings, why not? Later, back in the field, you catch yourself staring at the sky again, not for clouds, not even for rain, but for the hint of something soft and colorful. Historians still argue whether medieval farmers truly believed rainbows affected their yields, or if they simply clung to any form of hope in a world that rarely offered certainty. But one thing's clear: in a time without modern forecasts or scientific explanations, the sky was more than a backdrop. It was a conversation partner, and every color it painted had meaning. You glance over to your boundary line, where you've stacked a few flat stones to mark the corners of your barley plot. One of them has a faint etching, probably accidental, but it kind of looks like an arc, or a smile, or both. You remember your father once mentioning a saying, "Count the colors, mind the yield." He probably meant it as a joke, but still, the belief goes something like this: if a rainbow appears before planting, the season will be gentle. During planting, you'll get surprise rains. After planting, something strange will happen, either miraculous growth or unexpected failure. And the number of colors, that's where it gets dicey. Some say a full 7-color arc is a blessing. Others say it's too much nature showing off, which usually ends badly. There's even a local legend, addedly whispered by that drunk guy at the midsummer festival, that if you see a rainbow while planting onions, they'll grow sweet enough to eat raw. You tested it once. Result, tears. Lots of them, but not the sweet kind. As you bend down to tug out a particularly stubborn weed, you hear something behind you. Not footsteps, more like the soft slap-splat of someone walking through mud barefoot. You turn. It's little Henry, the blacksmith's son. His tunic is too big, and he's holding a stick like it's a royal scepter. "Ma says the rainbow was ours," he says, pointing toward your field. "Said it bent right over your goat shed. You blinked, that so?" He nods, wide-eyed. "Means your beets won't rot this year." She read it in the steam from her tea. You resist the urge to ask how she gets tea. Instead, you thank him, and watch as he tromps off to go poke an anthill or something equally important. It's funny. You've spent your whole life digging, planting, sweating, worrying, focused on the soil. But now you can't stop looking up, watching for signs. Not because you're superstitious, okay, maybe a little, but because it feels like the world is finally giving you something lovely in return. And you're not alone. Every farmer here, whether they admit it or not, watches the sky like it owes them rent. Rainbows are more than decoration. They're like emotional coupons from the universe. A brief, shimmering whisper that maybe, just maybe, you're doing okay. And even if it's nonsense, even if it's just refracted light and misplaced hope, it gives you something to count. 1 yesterday, 0 today. You'll keep score, just in case. By now, it's midweek, not that you have a calendar or anything fancy like that. But you know by the smell of the neighbor's boiled cabbage and the way your joints protest every time you lift the water bucket. Midweek means your legs ache deeper, your chores stretch longer, and you start talking to the tools like they're old co-workers. You're on your way to the upper field today, the one with more rocks than usable soil and a bird that has it out. For you, a magpie. loud, flashy, suspiciously intelligent. It watches you from the same branch every morning, tilting its head like it's keeping tabs. The sky overhead is pale and thoughtful, one of those days where the sun seems unsure about whether to show up. You squint up often now, looking for rainbows. Not just because of the superstition, but because counting them has become a thing. Quietly, privately, you're keeping track. 1 yesterday, still 0 today. But the weather's moist, and your gut says it might turn as you dig into the earth. You start to think more seriously about where the rainbow counting tradition even started. It's not in the Bible, at least not in a farming context, but everyone seems to treat it like sacred wisdom, passed from grandmother to child to neighbor to you. It might not be in the scripture, but it's in the soil, in the gossip, in the way people glance upward when something strange happens, like a cow giving birth 2 weeks early or a crow refusing to land. Historians still argue whether rainbow counting was ever a formal tradition or just a stitched-together bit of folklore, shaped by centuries of hoping the weather would be kind. Some medieval manuscripts mention sky signs, but it's hard to tell if they're talking about atmospheric phenomena or just very judgmental angels. What's more likely is that farmers, surrounded by things they couldn't control, disease, landlords gravitated toward anything they could pretend to understand. Rainbows were gentle, beautiful, harmless, and importantly, they always appeared after the rain, a promise, a punctuation mark, maybe even a reward. You pause mid-dig to rest your back, and the magpie lets out a squawk like it's correcting your form. You squint at it. You count on rainbows too. You mutter. It cocks its head like maybe. You lean against your shovel, thinking back to last planting season when Marta, the midwife who also sells candles and terrifying folk remedies, swore she saw 3 rainbows in 1 week. Claimed it was a sign of abundance. That season, she grew beans the size of a child's fist. Could have been the compost. Could have been the goat dung tea she dumped on them, don't ask. Or maybe it really was the rainbows dot down the hill. You hear the clanging of iron blacksmith at work. His forge hisses and spits, and the smoke curls up to meet the shy clouds. You've always admired how confident fire seems. No hesitation, just purpose. Unlike you, who's still wondering whether the potatoes you planted will finally stop growing sideways. You kneel again and begin turning over the soil with a sharper rhythm, imagining what it would be like if the world really operated on rainbow. Math. If every bright arc in the sky meant something specific. Imagine if 1 rainbow equals decent harvest, 2 equals unexpected visitor, 3 equals livestock pregnancy. Usually inconvenient for equals a very minor miracle, like a rat falling into the stew before. You serve it 5 or more equals time to build an ark or hide under the table, of course. Nobody agrees on the exact meanings. Some say even numbers are bad luck. Others claim the position matters. East-facing rainbows bring love. West-facing ones bring weeds. And then there's Old Bram, who insists that double rainbows are caused by forest spirits fighting over breakfast. And yet here you are, digging, planting, waiting, hoping. At midday, clouds roll in heavy like wool blankets, stacked too high. You keep working, that's the rule. Unless there's lightning or you physically merge with your cheval, keep going. You hear voices nearby. The miller's boys, arguing again. They're teenagers, which means they speak mostly in grunts and accusations. One of them shouts, something about a sky ribbon. You look up, not a full rainbow, but maybe the start of one. You blink, trying to focus.
just a faint curve. Could be your imagination. Or hope, squinting too hard. You count it anyway. 2. You whisper, later. You head back to your hut, mud clinging to your boots like guilt. You pass the old stone marker near the well. People leave small offerings, here dried herbs, scraps of wool, once even a doll's head. It's not religious, not exactly, just tradition. A kind of wish box for farmers who can't afford actual luck. You drop a single seed there, one you don't plan to plant, just in case. As you enter your doorway, the warmth of the hearth greets you like an old friend, slightly unreliable but loyal. You sit near the fire, sip from a cracked mug of something vaguely vegetable, and glance out the tiny window at the fading sky. Tomorrow you'll count again, not because it changes anything, but because it might. And that's the strange thing. Counting rainbows doesn't bring rain, doesn't ward off pests, but it gives you something. A soft system in a hard world. A way to mark time, not in days, or debts, or backaches, but in color. Brief, silent, vanishing color. And if that's not magic, what is? The next morning, the magpie is waiting. Same branch, same judgmental expression. You give it a nod, the kind you'd give a co-worker who's also trapped in the same endless loop of mild suffering and mud. It fluffs its feathers and resumes, staring at your hair like it's weighing the possibility of stealing a piece for its nest. You grab your tools, well, 2 of them. One's already missing, either borrowed by a neighbor or currently being used as a chew toy by your pig. Pig, by the way, is not helpful. He grunts at you with what you can only interpret as agricultural criticism, then waddles off like he's got more important things to do. Back in the fields, you work in the wet light of dawn. The air smells like grass and old bread. It's planting season, and your rows are straightish today. The rhythm is comforting. Dig, drop, cover, pat, like a lullaby for your hands. You hum again. The tune still makes no sense. You're starting to think it's ancient. Maybe something your ancestors hummed while doing exactly this, wrestling roots and looking up for signs. And today, there's a rainbow dot, faint at first, a soft shimmer above the chapel. You freeze mid-dig. It arches perfectly over the tree line. Not bold, but clear. You count. 1 full arc, colors blending like soup. Then a second one, fainter stacked, just above the first, like the sky accidentally hit copy. 3, you whisper, heart fluttering in a way that feels ridiculous and a little electric. 3 rainbows in 3 days. That's not normal. You turn, half expecting Gertrude to appear with an interpretation. She does not. Only the magpie, still judging. Historians still argue whether rainbow sightings were ever officially recorded by medieval farmers, or if these counts lived entirely in oral memory. No almanacs, no weather logs, just mutterings and memories, and maybe, at best, some crude chalk marks behind the door. But your village, you're pretty sure someone's keeping a tally. The old herbalist, for example, who knows everyone's illnesses and suspiciously tracks the moon phases with a chart she insists is just for fun. She'd know. And then there's the theory about planting days. Some villagers believe you should plant only after a rainbow, ever before. That a rainbow is the sky saying, now, go, trust me. You've broken that rule more times than you care to admit. And once, your entire cabbage patch went limp. Literally, overnight. You blamed slugs. The herbalist blamed bad timing. The rainbow came 2 days later, she said, sniffing a dried mushroom like it owed her money. Too late for you, poor soul. And still here you are, watching the sky like it's your supervisor. The odd thing is, rainbow counting isn't just about crops. Some folks say it's tied to fortune in general. That 1 rainbow brings health. 2. Safe travels. 3. You're due a visitor. 4. A baby. 5. Well, 5 usually makes everyone nervous. You don't ask why. There's a story you remember maybe. From a traveler, maybe from one of the winter festivals, when people tell tales to distract themselves from frostbite. It goes like this. A farmer saw 6 rainbows in 1 week and woke up to find every one of his animals had swapped places. The pig thought it was a cow, the cow thought it was a rooster, and the rooster just screamed. Is it true? Of course not. But does part of you want to see 6 rainbows? Absolutely. You resume planting, trying to shake the creeping sense that something is coming. You tell yourself it's just the weather. A wet spring, nothing strange. And then you spot something even stranger than the rainbow. Father Aldrich, the priest, walking through the field with his robes hiked up and his sandals caked in mud. Seen it? He asks, gesturing skyward. You nod. 2, maybe 3. He smiles, the kind of smile that makes you nervous. I'd say 4. But you didn't hear that from me. You raise a brow. Is that theological? He laughs. It's what? The shepherd boy said. He's been counting them since Candlemas. You blink. Why? Father Aldrich shrugs, says it helps him sleep. You consider this rainbow counting as a bedtime ritual. Could be worse. You've tried everything from garlic tea to breathing like a bellows. That night, you lie in bed and think about it. Each arc like a gentle tally mark across the heavens. What if it does help? What if watching the sky, noticing the brief beauty between storms, makes the world just a little softer? As you close your eyes, you whisper, 3 or 4, depends. On who's counting? Outside, rain begins to fall. Just a soft mist, the kind that promises puddles and more planting. You smile. Tomorrow might bring another. The next morning begins with a squelch. Not the poetic kind either. Just your foot sinking ankle deep into last night's gift of swampy earth. You yank it out with a sound like soup being stirred too fast, and your boot stays behind like it's refusing to participate in another day of nonsense. Barefoot in 1 sock. You hobble back to the door, muttering something impolite about clouds. The magpie, again, offers no sympathy, just another of its cocked head stares. You've decided it definitely knows something. Possibly an omen. Possibly just a very judgmental bird. You wrestle your boot back on and trudge out to the fields, which now resemble porridge. Planting will have to wait. Instead, today is for maintenance. Fixing the fence. Checking the gutters. Staring longingly at drier ground. It's on days like these that the rainbow counting takes on new significance. When progress is paused and you're knee-deep in the unwanted gifts of weather. The idea that the sky might be keeping score for you feels oddly comforting, and you're not the only one counting anymore. By the village well, 2 older women debate yesterday's count. One swears it was 3, the other says 2.5. You're not sure how half a rainbow works, but you don't question it. One claims she heard if you dream about a rainbow, it counts double. The other says dreaming doesn't count unless there's mist when you wake up. You don't intervene. Rainbow math is complicated, and everyone's using a different abacus. Historians still argue whether these folk beliefs were purely regional or whether they traveled along with pilgrims and merchants, carried in whispers and woven into songs. There are scraps of old letters monks writing home to distant abbeys, mentioning unseasonable bows in the sky and colors that speak of sheep luck, which sounds suspiciously like what your neighbor said yesterday, minus the Latin. And here's the twist. In the market town 2 valleys over, they don't count rainbows at all. They count dew on cabbage leaves. Apparently, shiny cabbage means happy outcomes. You think that's ridiculous, and then immediately wonder how shiny your cabbages are. Today, as you dig a little drainage trench which quickly becomes a moat, you hum again. The song now feels familiar, like it belongs to the weather itself, or to the act of waiting. You wonder if medieval farmers created melodies just to pace their thoughts. Some kind of sung journal, because when your daily routine is sweat, dig, hope, you might as well give it a soundtrack. Overhead, clouds begin to part, just a little, not dramatic, just enough to make you pause, mid-moan, and squint upward. And there it is. Rainbow, clear, small. A neat arc hovering behind the chapel steeple, like the sky is very quietly showing off. That makes 5. You should feel thrilled. 5 in 5 days is absurd, unheard of. That's nearly a record, assuming anyone's keeping one. And yet, with the 5th, comes a whisper. Not in your ear, don't worry, we're not that dramatic, but in your mind. A flutter of old warnings, half-remembered rhymes. 5 bows in a row, beware what you sow. You don't like that one. Still, you watch. Let the colors settle into your brain. Let their stillness calm the churn of soggy soil and neighborly gossip back in the village square. Marta is stringing garlic and muttering about the rainbow glut. Too many, too fast, she says to no one in particular. It's like too much honey, lovely, until the bees remember you exist. You offer a weak chuckle and keep walking. Everyone's mood has shifted. Not fear, exactly, but anticipation. Like the village is holding its breath. You think back to the stories. One about a knight who saw 7 rainbows in a fortnight and vanished. Another about a baker whose sourdough rose too high after a triple bow. And of course, the wandering monk who painted them on every parchment margin, convinced they held the answer to divine questions no one had asked. You used to laugh at these tales. Now, you still laugh, but softer, because there's something undeniably soothing about the way a rainbow appears. Never loud, never crashing down, just there. Like a sigh from the clouds, you sit on a tree stump as the sky fades toward a soft grey. Around you, the world smells like wet leaves and sheep. You trace the memory of the arc in your mind, committing the shape to your inner ledger, 5. You're not sure what that means yet, but you'll keep counting.
That night, the village hums, not literally, of course. No one's chanting, and certainly no one is singing the last time someone tried that after dark. The goats got so spooked they stopped producing milk for 3 days. But there's an undercurrent, a shared breath, an energy in the quiet. 5 rainbows in 5 days. That's the kind of thing people notice, even if they pretend they don't too lie in your bed, listening to the wind move through the shutters, ruffling the edge of your wool blanket. It smells faintly of rosemary, since you store herbs under the bed to ward off mice and, according to your aunt, restless dreams. You're not sure which is worse. Outside, you hear a low bleat from the hillside. The sheep are awake too. You don't sleep much that night. In the morning, it's sunny, brightly, unnervingly sunny. The kind of sun that comes with no clouds and, therefore, no rainbows. And yet, even as you trudge out to feed the chickens,
You catch villagers glancing up, pretending they're just checking for rain. You're not the only one counting anymore at the bakery. Old Bramhu rarely says more. Then A asks, "That was 5, right?" You nod. He nods back, gravely, like you've agreed on the terms of a contract neither of you fully understand. Historians still argue whether such communal superstitions served a practical purpose, whether the act of collectively counting symbols, like rainbows, gave people a sense of agency in a chaotic world, or whether, more simply, it was a way to measure time, to break up the endless loop of planting and waiting and wondering. You suspect it's both, and also neither, because sometimes a rainbow is just a rainbow, and sometimes it's a sign. Today, you're meant to deliver eggs to the miller's wife. It's a small errand, one that gets you out of your own head and into someone else's business for a little while. The miller's wife Matilda's very concerned about the 5. She pulls you aside the moment you arrive. "I heard 6 brings." "A wedding," she whispers, as if the idea itself is contagious. You blink. "A wedding for who?" "Exactly," she says, eyes wide. You try not to imagine being suddenly engaged just because the atmosphere got dramatic. Matilde continues, lowering her voice even more. "There's a story from the southern marshes. A girl saw 6 rainbows and had dreams of frogs in dresses. That doesn't sound like a wedding. You say it does if you think about it too hard. You don't. After leaving her with her eggs and unsolicited dreams, you stop by the chapel. Father Aldrich is outside, sweeping the stone steps like he's trying to clear away whatever the sky is planning. You raise a hand in greeting. "Any updates?" you ask. "Just prayers," he replies. "Though I admit, I've started watching the heavens a little more closely, purely for spiritual reasons, of course." He leans on his broom. "There's talk that the rainbows mean balance, like the sky is leveling itself, correcting something. What was wrong?" He shrugs. "What isn't?" That thought stays with you, because lately things have felt strange. Not bad, not ominous, just slightly tilted. The bread rises faster. The bees swarm less. Even your pig seems contemplative. Not that pigs are known for introspection, but yours has taken to staring at the horizon during feeding time like he's pondering moral dilemmas. Later that afternoon, you spot a flicker of color in the eastern sky. It's faint, a whisper more than a song. But there it is. 6, you inhale sharply, not because it's frightening, but because it's too perfect. 6 in 6 days. What are the odds? You don't tell anyone, not yet. Instead, you sit on your familiar stump, knees muddy, palms scraped from the day's attempts at fence repair. You trace the colors in your mind, slowly, like petals. Red, orange, yellow, all the way to violet, which always feels like an afterthought. The 6th rainbow glows like it knows it's significant. You whisper to it, even though you feel silly. What now? It doesn't answer, of course, just hovers. But something in the air feels charged, not with danger, with possibility. That night, you sleep deeply and dream of a table covered in moss, a loaf of bread that sings when sliced, and a goat wearing a velvet sash. You wake up smiling. Maybe 6 isn't so bad. You wake up to birds singing just slightly off-key, not unpleasantly just, enough to make you wonder if they're experimenting with harmony. The breeze carries the scent of damp grass and baking bread, which makes no sense since it's barely sunrise and the baker doesn't start until after the second bell. Still, you follow the scent out your front door, rubbing sleep from your eyes and wondering if maybe, just maybe, this will be the day the seventh rainbow arrives. 7 is a number that matters, even more than 6. Everyone knows that 7 colors in the rainbow, 7 days in a week, 7 types of herbs to put under your pillow if you want to dream of your future goat. Okay, that one might just be your grandmother's invention, but she swore by it. You head to the field, your boots making little suction sounds in the half-dry soil. The morning dew glistens like 1,000 tiny mirrors, catching just enough light to make you pause. For a moment, you think the dew is forming a rainbow of its own. Then you blink, and it's just wet grass again. Still, something about today feels ripe like. The air is full of waiting. You're halfway through gathering wildflowers for dyeing cloth, when you hear the unmistakable gasp of someone spotting magic. Look, look, a child yells from the churchyard. There, over the barn. You squint, shielding your eyes, and there it is. Number 7. Bolder than the others. Almost smug. This one arcs across the entire sky, so brilliant it seems to pulse. Even the skeptical old swineherd drops his bucket and mutters something reverent. You can hear gasps, murmurs, even a little laughter. The whole village seems to have turned to look at the same piece of sky. You feel full, like something ancient has just clicked into place. 7. Someone whispers behind you, breathless. You nod, because words don't quite work right now. Historians still argue whether people in your time saw rainbows as messages, or merely anomalies, rare bits of beauty that needed explanation or reverence. There are illuminated manuscripts filled with arcane diagrams showing rainbows as bridges, as harps, as heavenly reminders of promises too old to trace. But none of them really capture this feeling. The 7th rainbow lingers longer than the others. You sit on a low stone wall and let the light soak into your skin. It feels like being inside a song. Then the rumors begin. By midday, someone insists. This is the prophetic 7th, the one that signals a year of golden eggs. You doubt the chickens are aware of this. Another says it marks the beginning of the glimmering shift, a phrase no one can define. But everyone agrees sounds impressive at the tavern. A bard appears from nowhere and starts singing a ballad about it, even though it happened 4 hours ago. That's dedication. Your friend Osreki, of the 2 missing teeth and impressive gooselings, in and mutters. My great-aunt swore the 7th bough was a gate. To what she never said. But she kept a spoon under her pillow, just in case. You try to picture gate-suitable spoons. You can't. As night falls, the village is buzzing. Softly, but undeniably. No one is quite sure what the 7th rainbow means. But everyone agrees it means something. You find yourself writing it down. 7th bough, full sky, east to west. Colors too bright to be real. Chickens, slightly agitated. You sketch a rough arc. It looks more like a worm, but it helps. That night, as you lie in bed, you think about all the things the rainbow could be. A symbol, a cycle, a soft hello from the world beyond clouds. You dream of walking on light, the colors supporting your weight like silk. The wind tells stories in a language you almost understand. And far below, your village looks peaceful, like it's waiting for nothing and everything at once. You wake just before dawn with the quiet certainty that the 7th rainbow wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The next morning, you find yourself rising earlier than usual, not because of chores, those never really stop, but because something in your bones tells you that the day might not wait around politely this time. You wrap a shawl around your shoulders still smelling faintly of lavender from last week's herb boil mishap, and step outside. The world is quiet in a different way now. Not the hush of dawn, but the kind of calm that follows an announcement. Like the sky has made a declaration, and now everyone is waiting for the results. The seventh rainbow still lingers in conversation. Even your neighbor, a woman who once spent an entire month refusing to acknowledge the moon because it stared too much, has changed her clothes in honor of the occasion. Bright blue dress, gold stitching, clearly inspired. Do you think there'll be an eighth? She asks you over the fence, holding a basket of suspiciously early apples. Is there supposed to be? She shrugs. 7 sounds final, but I've never trusted numbers. That day, work continues as it always does. Fields to tend, animals to scold gently, and a stream that insists on moving your stepping stones just enough to make crossing dramatic. But something is different. Everyone is watching the sky now, not in fear, exactly. More like curiosity mixed with the kind of reverence people usually save for sacred relics or extremely good soup. Even the children have stopped inventing games that involve throwing mud at things that shouldn't be thrown at. They're busy trying to see if rainbows smell like anything. They don't, but one swears it tastes like cold metal and peppermint. Historians still debate whether medieval villagers shared a communal understanding of what certain signs meant or if the meanings shifted by region, by season, even by mood. A rainbow in the north might mean fertility. In the south, peace. In your village, it seems to mean stories. Everywhere you go, people are telling them. Old Tomas claims that in his youth, a rainbow appeared on the day his ox gave birth to a goat. No one questions this, even though biology would. A traveling peddler spins a tale about a man who climbed a rainbow to escape his debts. No one's sure if it's meant to be hopeful or a cautionary tale, but it makes for excellent tavern conversation. Even your pig seems inspired. He's been dragging his water trough into the sunlight at odd angles, as if hoping to catch a reflection of magic. You spend part of the afternoon by the old stone bridge, sketching again. Your drawings are bad, truly terrible. But the act of it, the act of trying to capture what's felt rather than seen, soothes you. And then, just as the sun starts to dip behind the hills, something odd happens. Not another rainbow, but a shimmer, a strange ripple of color, like someone took a brush and gently smudged the sky. It doesn't arch, it hovers. Everyone stops, a few gasp, a few laugh. One person faints, though, in fairness, it's the same person who faints when the chickens sneeze, so no one panics. You're too mesmerized to speak. It's not a rainbow, not exactly. More like its echo, a cousin. A whisper of the same language, sung in a new key. Somewhere nearby, Father Aldrich crosses himself, then pauses, then does it again, slower, as if unsure what prayer fits this moment. You look at the shimmer. It doesn't promise anything, doesn't threaten either. It just is, and in its presence, you feel ... Noticed, not in a grand, terrifying way, but in a way that suggests the universe glanced your direction and gave a small, understanding nod. When the shimmer fades, there's silence, then someone claps once. Slowly, it's Osric, of course. I think it liked us, he says. You laugh. You're not sure if he's right, but the thought is comforting. That night, you sit by the fire, the flickering light casting shadows that feel unusually gentle. You think about all the signs people look for in the world. Comets, dreams, tea, leaves, the way a dog barks at a stranger. And you think about how sometimes
People just need a reason to believe in something more than turnips and taxes. Maybe the rainbow wasn't a message. Maybe it was a moment. And maybe that's enough. The days that follow the shimmer are somehow quieter and louder all at once. You still have to milk the goats, by the way. Remain aggressively unimpressed by celestial phenomena, but everything else seems slightly off balance, like the world is shifting its weight from one foot to another. Restless, thoughtful. This morning, instead of heading straight to the fields, you wander past the village square. There's a small crowd gathered around a strange sight. Someone has begun carving rainbows into the wooden posts of the public well. Not elaborate rainbows, just simple arcs, 7 lines each, neatly done, almost reverent. No one admits to doing it, but by mid-morning another appears, this one etched into the back of a bench outside the cobbler's house, and another near the bell tower, painted in crushed berry juice that has begun to fade into a soft, rosy brown. The village is marking the moment, maybe to remember, maybe to preserve it, or maybe to invite more of whatever it was. Historians still argue whether folk traditions like these began as spontaneous acts of devotion or were driven by quiet, communal decisions. There are examples in the record: sudden mushroom symbols, scratched into monastery walls after strange dreams spread through the dormitories, handprints painted beneath stone bridges during lunar eclipses. None fully explained, all carefully noted. You stop to examine the newest arc, painted along the edge of a chicken coop. The colors are surprisingly accurate, considering the limited palette of beet juice, crushed grass, and what you strongly suspect is charcoal soot mixed with goat milk. A small girl walks past and whispers, "If we get to 10, we win." You raise an eyebrow. She offers no further information. The village is slowly becoming a rainbow gallery, and no one is stopping it. Osric insists it's a sign that the spirits of weather and wheat have found harmony. He offers this theory while balancing a spoon on his nose, which somewhat undermines the gravitas. You just smile. Something has changed. You don't need to understand it to feel it. The idea takes root in you that the rainbow wasn't just a thing that happened, but a thing that invited not just awe or superstition, but a kind of soft rebellion against routine, against the muddy boots and cracked fingers and creaky joints of daily medieval life. And so, on a particularly bright afternoon, you do something you've never done before. You leave your chores unfinished. Not all of them. You're not an animal. But you set down the shears. You look at the tangled herb patch, shrugged, and walk past it. You head for the high hill beyond the woods, where the view stretches wide enough to see both sunrise and sunset if you squint hard enough and stay still long enough. It's a place of windy solitude, mostly visited by shepherds who want a nap and lovers who want to avoid being pelted with old bread for public affection. You sit there, let the wind muss your hair, let your thoughts wander. For a while, nothing happens. Then, a single cloud moves across the sun in just the right way. A glint, a hint. Not a full rainbow, but something close. A flicker of color in the sky's throat, like it's clearing itself before speaking again. And you feel it. That thrum behind the ribs. You imagine rainbows, not as bows or arches, but as doorways, as threads, as the sky trying to write poetry across itself in colors instead of words. You lean back into the grass, and for a few minutes you do nothing, and it feels like everything. Evening settles gently over the village, like a well-worn shawl draped over tired shoulders. The sheep are bleating themselves to sleep. A dog yawns so dramatically
It looks like he might turn inside out. You sit by your little window, watching. The final streaks of orange and lavender smear across the horizon. The clouds are slow and full-bodied, drifting like lazy ideas. The rainbow carvings are everywhere now. By the smithy, someone scratched one into the side of the anvil. On the corner of the baker's oven, a tiny one just 3 colors has been marked in soot. Even your own doorframe now bears one, courtesy of a child who insisted your house looked lonely without magic. You left it because, honestly, she wasn't wrong. Historians still debate how medieval communities marked phenomena they didn't fully understand. Some say festivals sprang up overnight dances around trees struck by lightning, for instance. Others claim silence was the greater tribute. But your village has chosen something in between. A quiet, ongoing response. Not loud, not solemn, just present. Tonight, at the tavern, no one's singing, which is odd. Usually by now, someone would have cracked open a lute, or at least tried to hum the folk song that sounds suspiciously like a frog arguing with a flute. Instead, people are telling stories. One woman recalls seeing a rainbow that fell into the lake as a girl and swears the fish in it shimmered differently ever since. A shepherd mutters about a misty light he once chased for half a mile, thinking it was a rainbow coming to greet him personally. He later admitted it was just the reflection of his cousin's laundry bucket. Everyone laughs, but softly, you sip a weak ale that tastes a bit like regret and roasted barley. It suits the mood. A traveling monk, silent all evening, finally speaks. In the Book of Clouds, he says, there's a passage about the 7th arc. Nobody's heard of the Book of Clouds. He smiles. Not many have. But it says the 7th rainbow appears only when the land and the people have come into rhythm. Someone asks what happens after the 7th. He shrugs, either harmony or more rain. You suspect he enjoys being mysterious. Later that night, walking home, you pass Osric again. He's rearranged the stones near the square into a kind of spiral, and when asked why, he simply says, rainbows have to land somewhere. Fair. You pause outside your door. The night is dark, but not blank. Stars prickle the sky, and somewhere in the distance, an owl voices its opinion on absolutely everything. Inside, you light a stubby candle and notice your carved rainbow again, and then you do something unexpected. You add another line. A faint 8th arc, barely visible, just in case. Maybe the girl was right. Maybe 10 is the goal. Or maybe, just maybe, you're not trying to finish something. You're trying to continue it. You lie down and let the candle flicker its little performance. The walls glow warm, like bread crusts. You imagine yourself inside a painting, and then your mind begins to drift to colors you haven't yet seen. 2 stories not yet told, and to the strange, comforting thought that sometimes magic doesn't roar, it hums. You wake up late the next morning, which is unusual and deeply scandalous according to your neighbor, whose rooster has been crowing aggressively outside. Your window like a poultry-themed alarm clock with a grudge. Your dreams had been strange. Not nightmares, not really, just odd. Colors that didn't exist. A forest where all the leaves whispered your name. A goat who handed you a scroll and then burst into song. You suspect this is what happens when you eat stewed onions after sunset, but as you stretch and yawn your way into consciousness, something peculiar catches your eye. A rainbow, faint but definitely there, arcing gently across the dew-soaked field beyond your cottage. Another one. You squint, step outside barefoot, and blink up at the sky. The air smells like wet moss and possibility. The rainbow seems lower than usual, like it's bending a little closer to earth, today like it's eavesdropping. Word travels fast. Before long, half the village is outside again, some still in their night clothes, others clearly trying to act casual, as if they weren't sprinting. The moment someone yelled, "Another one." And just like that, you've officially hit 8. Osric performs a cartwheel, trips, and pretends it was an interpretive dance. The child who invented the 10, and you win. Theory is now wearing a crown of dandelions and declaring herself keeper of the colors. No one argues. The air is full of laughter, but softer than before. Not giggles, something rounder, gentler, as if everyone's learning how to laugh with their whole bodies. You look around and realize, this is more than wonder now. It's routine. Rainbow counting has become part of the day, like milking or mending or muttering about taxes. It's woven into conversation. Did you see the bread this morning? Almost as golden as the 4th arc. Your dog rolled in something again. He looks like the violet band of the last one, and yet nobody seems tired of it. There's no cynicism, no eye-rolling, just quiet joy. Historians still debate whether certain medieval customs evolved from genuine belief or from the simple human craving for rhythm, for ritual. Some suggest that the act of marking time through odd signs, a crooked moon, a cold wind, a double yoke, helped villagers feel agency in a world that rarely gave them any. Maybe rainbows, in their fleeting beauty, are perfect for this, because they don't stay, they don't ask anything, they don't punish or bless. They simply arrive, and that's enough. Later, at the riverbank, you meet the old weaver who mostly speaks in riddles and soup recipes. She's washing yarn in silence, her hands wrinkled and sure. When you mention the 8th rainbow, she nods. Don't. Trust the 9th, she says. You wait for clarification. You get none, instead. She stands, wrings out the yarn, and wanders away, humming something that might be a lullaby or a warning. Still, the idea sticks. The 9th, is it coming? Is it dangerous? Is it just her being cryptic? You ask Osric. He thinks for a second, then shrugs. Even numbers are smug. 9 has potential. This, somehow, helps. That evening, you begin a small, secret ritual of your own. In a little, leather-bound book, barely held together by twine and stubbornness, you begin to record the rainbows, with diagrams or dates, but with feelings. Rainbow 1 surprised me, like stepping on a warm stone. Rainbow 2 made me think of home, even though I was home. Rainbow 3 tasted like pears. Don't ask why. Rainbow 4, I cried. Just a little, good tears. Rainbow 5, Osric yelled, destiny, and fell. In the pond. Rainbow 6, quiet as a cat's sigh. Rainbow 7, Rainbow 8, like someone whispered, carry on, in color. You close the book and tuck it under your mattress. No one else needs to see it, but it's yours. And as you blow out the candle that night, you think, if the 9th rainbow comes, you'll be ready. Maybe you'll even wave. The 9th rainbow does not arrive with trumpets or lightning or prophetic goats, although honestly, you'd begun to hope for one. It shows up on a day so boring, it almost folds in on itself. You wake to the same rooster, the same porridge, the same loose floorboard that still catches your toe, no matter how many times you promise to fix it. The sky is a washed-out grey, like parchment left in the rain. You drag yourself through the morning feeding chickens, weaving thatched repairs, nodding politely to the man who insists he's invented a new kind of wheelbarrow. It's just upside down. No one tell him. Then, just as you're settling into the rhythm of monotony, someone shouts your name. You don't move at first. Probably just Osric trying to show you his newest weather-detecting spoon again. But then the shout comes again, and this time it's not from Osric, it's from the village bellringer, who rarely speaks above a whisper and hasn't shouted since the infamous bee in the sock incident of last year. You jog up the path and there it is, the ninth only. It's different. Not brighter, not bigger. In fact, it's a bit wobbly. The arcs seem less even, like the sky was rushing. The colors blend more than they define, swirling gently, like ink in water. The air smells strange, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar, like sage or snow that hasn't fallen yet. Everyone is quiet, even Osric, even the child with the dandelion crown, now slightly wilted. The ninth is solemn, not sad, exactly, just weighted, as if it carries something the others didn't. Historians still argue whether such moments when an entire village or town collectively reacts, with reverence are recorded accurately in medieval chronicles. Some scribes likely embellished, others might have underplayed it. But oral history holds these moments like glass, fragile but intact. And what's being passed around right now isn't fear, it's awe. Someone murmurs, "This one feels." Final. The old weaver appears at your elbow. You didn't see her arrive. She's holding a scrap of cloth dyed in every color you've seen in the past weeks, except one. A silvery hue you can't place like moonlight if it were somehow warm. She presses it into your hand without a word. You ask what it means. She smiles. Every tale ends, but not every ending is sad. Then she walks away, humming the same tune you've heard before, the one that might be a warning or a bedtime story. You stare at the cloth. It shimmers oddly, as if woven from possibility itself. Back in the village, people begin to speak softly again. The ninth, they say, feels like a goodbye. Maybe it is, or maybe it's just a pause. Rainbows don't promise. They visit. You take a long walk through the fields after, letting your fingers trail along tall grass tips like you're reading Braille from the earth itself. The wind picks up and you swear it says your name, or maybe just hums it by the time you return home. The ninth is fading, not vanishing, just withdrawing, like a guest who doesn't want to overstay, but hopes to be remembered. You stand by your doorframe and touch the now footed carving, and then, without knowing why, you draw a small crescent beneath it. Not a rainbow, a moon, a whisper of something new. You go inside, you sit by the window and wait, not for the 10th rainbow, but for whatever comes after. Rain hasn't touched the village in 6 days now. That's not unusual in itself. Weather comes and goes, like rumors in a tavern. But after 9 rainbows in near succession, the absence feels loud, like someone turned off a melody mid-note. Life resumes, or at least tries to. The baker returns to experimenting with strange breads. Today's special is parsley surprise, though the only surprise is that anyone buys it. Osric returns to inventing, having moved on from spoons to what he calls the wind fork. It's unclear what it does. Possibly scares birds, and you try not to stare at the sky so much, but you do. You catch yourself watching every cloud, every misty patch of light on a field. You're not expecting another rainbow. You shouldn't be, but your eyes wander upwards anyway. Like children peeking around corners during a game of hide-and-seek, they're pretending not to care about your rainbow. Journal remains tucked under.
Your mattress. You haven't added anything since the 9th. Not because nothing's happened, but because what's happening now feels like a different chapter. A softer one. Not about chasing, but settling. Historians still debate how medieval people processed the aftermath of spiritual or communal experiences. Some records show a tendency to ritualize the past, to bake it into songs, symbols, seasonal markers. Others argue that forgetting was the most sacred act of all, that memory was too dangerous to keep sharp for too long. You're not sure where you fall on that spectrum, until one afternoon, when the village child, yes, the one with the crown, running up to you with a handful of river stones. "I'm making memory markers," she says, breathless. "One for each rainbow. Want to help? You do dot together. You paint each stone with natural dyes. Ochre for the first, soot-black swirls for the second. For the third, a tiny feather stuck in wax. Each marker is unique. Not literal representations, but impressions, feelings turned into shapes." When you ask her what the 10th will look like, she shrugs. "Hasn't come yet. Maybe it's invisible. Or maybe it's already here." That night, something odd happens. No rainbow appears, but everyone steps outside anyway. No one says why, they just do, and then a song begins, not planned, not rehearsed. Just a humming, low and collective, passed from person to person like a warm bowl of soup. It has no words, just comfort. The weaver, Osric, the baker, the bell ringer. It's not about rainbows anymore. It's about what they gave you, a shared language, a pause in time, a reminder that even in the muddiest, most monotonous, flea-bitten medieval village, wonder can bloom. You head home under starlight. No candle tonight. You let the dark wrap around you like a blanket. Your last thought before sleep is a gentle one. Sometimes, the rainbow isn't in the sky, it's in the people watching it. You don't mean to become the village rainbow historian. It just sort of happens. One day you're scribbling impressions in your leather-bound book, and the next, people are asking, did the third rainbow come before the goat parade or after? Was it the 6th one where Osric fell in the stream, or the 7th? And suddenly, your little journal is less private reflection and more community archive. You don't mind, not really. It's not a burden, it's a comfort, like stirring soup for someone who's sick, or handing someone your favorite blanket without asking for it back. Besides, it's not just your memory anymore. People begin sharing their rainbow stories. The baker remembers one where the sky smelled like honey. The bell ringer insists she once heard a rainbow humming. Osric claims his dreams turned more colorful after the 5th. They were already weird, you remind him. But now they rhyme, he insists. You collect it all. You write it down, and something shifts. You realize that, for all the mystery and beauty of those celestial arches, the real story was never just about counting them. It was about what happened because of them. Historians still struggle to capture this part, the afterglow of communal wonder. There are records of village fairs sparked by comets, of marriages formed after celestial alignments. But how do you document a smile that lingered longer than usual? A silence that felt full instead of awkward? You try your best. Your book now holds not just the rainbows, but the side effects. A candlelit vigil, a spontaneous dance, a truce between two quarreling neighbors who realized mid-drum both no argument was worth missing the view. And something even stranger happens. People stop needing the rainbows to appear. They gather anyway, not always, but often around dusk,
by the big oak, mugs of watered cider in hand. They sit and look at the sky, not with expectation, but gratitude. It becomes something sacred in its own unspoken way. A ritual with no priest, no altar, no doctrine. Just people, present, together. And somehow, this too gets into your journal. You worry it sounds silly, sentimental. Then again, you remind yourself, what isn't really? One evening, a traveler passes through. Dusty boots, road-worn face. He stays for one night, exchanging stories by the fire. You tell him about the rainbows. He chuckles. I've been through dozens of villages. Most just complain about taxes and goats. You nod. We do that too. But something about your tale sticks with him. In the morning, he borrows parchment. You see him writing. A week later, a letter arrives from 2 towns over. You don't know me, it begins, but I heard about your rainbows. And then another, and another. Apparently, word has traveled. People are painting stones, watching skies, not chasing magic, but noticing it. Your village, once known only for its unusually clumsy roosters, has become a whisper on the wind. The place where people counted rainbows not because they needed to predict the weather, but because they remembered how to be amazed. You wake one morning to a knock at your door, not urgent, not frantic, just gentle. It's the child with the crown again, although she's older now, a little taller, fewer burrs in her hair, but that same spark in her eye, like she knows. A secret even she hasn't figured out yet. She's holding a small wooden box. I think it's time, she says. You don't ask what she means. You already know, inside the box are the 9 rainbow stones you painted together. Their colors have faded slightly with time, but the marks remain impressions of moments that changed the way your village looks at the sky and each other. There's space for a 10th. You look at her. She doesn't say anything, just offers you a brush. You dip it in a mixture of crushed lavender and clay. The color is soft, not quite purple, not quite grey. Like the inside of a dream you can't fully remember. And on the last stone, you don't draw a rainbow dot. You draw an open eye. Because that's what the 10th rainbow really was. Not a stripe of color in the sky, but a shift. A widening dot of awareness, of patience, of the ability to sit with wonder even when there's no spectacle. Historians still debate whether the rainbow counting ritual was ever formalized. Some records call it folklore. Others suggest it grew into something like a seasonal rite. But the truth, like the rainbows themselves, is softer than fact. Less about records, more about remembering. You and the child walk to the edge of the field. The same one where you saw the 7th rainbow ripple like silk. You bury the 10th stone there, no speech, no crowd, just 2 people choosing to mark time, not with calendars, but with care. You sit for a while in the grass. The wind stirs gently. The smell of rain in the distance, though no clouds are in sight. The sky is a soft silver. You think of the weaver's cloth, of Osric's absurd inventions, of the candle you forgot to blow out one night and woke to find still glowing. You think, maybe this is what endings are supposed to feel like. Not dramatic, not final, just quiet, like the last exhale before sleep. And then you walk back home. Your house creaks the way it always has. The floorboard still betrays your toes. The porridge is overcooked. Osric has improved your doorknob again. Nothing has changed, and everything has. You open your rainbow journal one last time. On the final page, you don't write anything. You just draw a tiny, shimmering crescent, and underneath it, 3 words. You were here. So now, you're back in your own room. Maybe your eyes are already fluttering closed, or maybe you're still tucked beneath your blankets, listening for the next soft whisper of the wind. Let's slow things down together. Picture those rolling fields, again the ones brushed in gold just before evening. Feel the grass under your fingertips, the hush of dusk settling in like a lullaby across the land. The sky above isn't bursting with color anymore. It's a gentle grey blue, still kind, unhurried. The scent of wood smoke drifts faintly from a distant chimney. Somewhere, someone's humming a tune that doesn't need words. You don't have to do anything now. You've counted your rainbows. You've walked the path. You've marked the moments, even the quiet ones. And those matter most of all. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breath slow. Let the room blur gently around the edges, like an old map fading into sleep. You've wandered far tonight, from muddy lanes to misty skies, from rainbow arches to village fires. And now, it's time to rest. So close your eyes, traveler. The sky will still be there tomorrow. And who knows, maybe a 10th rainbow waits just beyond the horizon. Good night.